In the entire history of World War II, only one aircraft earned as much ridicule as it did terror. This was the heavyweight champion, a massive, muscular machine that defied the conventions of air combat, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, known to its pilots simply as the Jug. In the early months of 1943, when the P-47s first arrived over the skies of Europe, the seasoned Luftwaffe pilots laughed. From the canopies of their nimble Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, German ace Joseph Priller reportedly mocked the new American fighter as a flying milk bottle. This massive 7-ton brute seemed clumsy, slow to climb, and far too heavy for a serious dogfight. It stood in stark contrast to the European design philosophy that prized lightweight agility. But America was playing a different game. This wasn't a dogfighter. This was an industrial juggernaut built for one purpose: winning the war of attrition. The P-47 was designed not for acrobatic finesse, but for dive speed, structural durability, and sheer, overwhelming firepower. Every ounce of German mockery was based on one fundamental misunderstanding: that the Americans would play by Europe's rules. They were dead wrong. The story of the P-47 begins in 1940. As France fell, the U.S. Army Air Corps urgently needed a high-altitude interceptor to counter the Luftwaffe's threat. Designer Alexander Kartveli anchored his vision around the single most powerful engine available. That engine was the Pratt Whitney R-2800 double wasp Amasa, 18-cylinder radial engine capable of churning out over 2,000 horsepower. The P-47's huge fuselage was a direct consequence of accommodating this engine and its revolutionary turbo supercharger system. This complex plumbing ran exhaust gases back to a turbine in the tail, which then compressed the thin air and fed it back to the engine. The result? The P-47 maintained its full power even above 30,000 feet, where German engines were gasping for breath. But the true American signature was the armament: 8 50 caliber Browning machine guns, 4 mounted in each wing. With a total capacity of 3,400 rounds, the P-47 could deliver more focused lead on a target than any other U.S. fighter. Veteran pilots called the fire a sheet of lead. It was so concentrated that just a 2-second burst was usually enough to shred enemy aircraft. Early pilots, particularly those of the 56th Fighter Group, struggled with the P-47. It was so heavy it would torque roll on takeoff, and it was the first Allied fighter to experience compressibility, loss of control, in high-speed dives. Ace Robert S. Johnson recalled, "You didn't fly it, you aimed it. Yet, once they mastered it, they learned to trust the Jug's bulk." In the initial engagements of 1943, the Luftwaffe thought they had the measure of the P-47. They tried to draw them into turning fights. But they quickly discovered a terrifying truth. The Thunderbolts they shot down often absorbed damage that would have atomized any other fighter. The P-47 was a literal cage of steel. Its radial engine design eliminated the fragile, leak-prone liquid cooling systems of its German counterparts. It featured a thick armor plate behind the pilot and a supremely robust wing and fuselage structure. The best evidence of this durability came on June 26, 1943. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson was ambushed, and his P-47 took 21 hits from 20 mm cannon shells. The canopy was jammed, the engine was burning, and the hydraulic system was shredded. Johnson was a sitting duck. Yet the aircraft kept flying. A German Focke-Wulf 190 pulled alongside, emptied its remaining guns at the crippled Jug, and still it flew on. The German pilot, out of ammunition and utterly confounded, simply pulled up alongside Johnson, offered a salute of disbelief, and flew away. When Johnson finally crash-landed at Manston, ground crews counted over 200 bullet holes. This incredible survivability led to the core American combat doctrine. 56th Fighter Group Commander Colonel Hubert Hub Zemke laid down the law: don't turn with the Krauts. Use your weight, your power, and your guns. The result was the definitive boom and zoom tactic. Climb high, where the powerful supercharger gave the P-47 the advantage. dive at incredible speeds, often over 550 miles per hour, blast the enemy with those 850 cals, and then use the speed and power to zoom back up to altitude. It was a strategy perfectly suited to the aircraft and one the nimble German fighters could not counter. By late 1943, the P-47 was the premier high-altitude escort for the mighty 8th Air Force bombers, striking deep into the German Reich. The concentrated firepower of the Jug was proving decisive. On the crucial Schweinfurt-Regensburg raid of August 1943, P-47s showed their ability to break up the deadly German heavy fighter formations. The loss of German aces mounted. In October 1943, Hans Philipp, a top German ace with over 200 victories. Continuous improvements made the P-47 even deadlier. The P-47 D-22 model introduced the large paddle blade propeller, which dramatically improved its rate of climb, eliminating one of the aircraft's few remaining weaknesses. This new propeller also gave the plane a deeper, louder roar. German ground troops began calling it Donnerschlag, the thunderclap. With the arrival of the long-range P-51 Mustang, the P-47's role shifted, freeing it for its most devastating work, ground attack. This was the role that truly broke the back of the German army in the West. In the ground attack role, the P-47 was unmatched. It could carry 2 1,000-pound bombs, 1 500-pound bomb, and 10 high-velocity aircraft rockets, HVARs, giving it the destructive power of a medium bomber. Combined with the 8 machine guns firing armor-piercing incendiary rounds, it was a mobile artillery piece. Following D-Day in June 1944, the U.S. 9th Air Force Thunderbolts began a systematic campaign of destruction against German logistics. It was the birth of modern close air support. They targeted everything that moved. German railroads, truck columns, and supply depots were devastated. German generals lamented that their troops could only move at night. During the day, the P-47 owned the skies, making all movement suicidal. German commander Oberst Hans von Luck recalled that a column of his trucks could be reduced to burning wreckage in a single pass by a P-47. The Jug created a no-movement zone across the entire Western Front. Even Germany's advanced Me-262 jet fighters weren't safe. P-47 pilots, exploiting their superior dive speed and the jet's vulnerability during landing and takeoff, scored kills against the fastest aircraft in the world. The P-47 was the essential workhorse. It was the bomber crew's friend and the ground troops' flying guardian, known by its crew chiefs as the Jug, because of its profile and by the fighting men on the ground as the most reliable air support in the theater. The story of the P-47 Thunderbolt is the story of America's industrial capacity winning the war. Republic Aviation built an astounding 15,683 P-47s, more than any other American fighter. At its peak, U.S. factories were rolling out nearly 1 Thunderbolt every hour. While German factories struggled and their pilot corps was decimated, America could absorb losses and replace men and machines instantly. The P-47 earned its combat record by bringing its pilots home. The aircraft achieved over 3,700 air-to-air kills in Europe, but its most important statistic was its loss rate of only 1.2%. It was rugged, dependable, and durable, the ultimate expression of American engineering philosophy. Looking back after the war, former Luftwaffe Inspector General Adolf Galland summarized the P-47's impact. "We made a terrible mistake. We looked at a big, heavy fighter and laughed. The Americans were not building a European fighter. They were building an American fighter based on durability, firepower, and mass production." He called the sound of its guns Roosevelt's piano. The P-47 Thunderbolt, the Jug, went from being a subject of ridicule to becoming one of the most effective, most powerful, and most indestructible war machines in history. It was the rolling thunder of American might that brought the fight to the enemy and helped turn the tide of the war.